What's up, YouTube peeps? We are back for another review from our friends from Soundiron. This time we are taking a look at Sonespheres Limitless, which is a collection of all 4 volumes in the Sonespheres series. Clocks in just over 6 gigabytes. You need the full version of Contact. It is heavy on the synth and sound design side of things. Really detailed and interactive interface, which we would not expect any less of from our friends at Soundiron. Let's dig in and see what we can do with it. Interface is something that Soundiron does incredibly well, and this is no exception. There's so much thought and detail that goes into being able to manipulate the sounds in any way possible. To start off with, we have our 4 Sonespheres. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of those has the collection of sounds from that collection when it first came out. So you can call up those individual patches from those libraries, or you can combine them with the other ones in some really interesting and unusual ways. You just click on here and then you can dial up the sounds from each one. Okay, and I'll show you some of that. We have all these macro knobs that you can assign. You have individual control for each one. So if I click on this one, you'll see that we have our sets of parameters that we can change down here. And if I click on here, this will only control Sonespheres 2. So individual control for each one. Low frequency oscillators, you got your filter controls, and your arpeggio. Okay, so lots of stuff in there. And then we have our macros controls, endless possibility of things that you can do to assign your controllers. This, I can tell you right off the bat, this is for people who like to tinker and like to really get into sound design, manipulating sound, change sound, creating your own presets, that sort of thing. So I think it's really custom tailored to that. Or they have a bunch of presets that we can just go through, and that'll kind of dial those in quickly, and then you can change what you want to change. You can roll the dice. Let's see what that does. Just randomly kind of changes up the controls. I love these kind of randomized features. I really enjoy them. There's some happy accidents in there. If you find a sound that you like, you can go in there and you can dial it exactly the way that you want to dial it in. If you don't want all these controls, you see how this macro 2, if we go in and check out what that's doing. See this down here, speed and range on the x-axis, we can just turn that off. Okay, now we just have the y-axis, which is controlling macro 4. We can also shut that down. We can keep those static, and then now we can just randomly move this around. We have some legato controls down here. This controls the speed of the legato. Really useful if you want to create some custom risers. Portamento will slide into the pitch, just like in a string library. Be really good for creating leads as well. You probably want it to be a little bit quicker if you want to lead. So as you can see, I'm just randomly, this is how I approach every interface that has a lot in it. I just randomly start to tweak buttons, turn things without any method until I get a sound that I like. That's it. So in a nutshell, as you can see, there's a ton of stuff that you can control. The effects rack has a bunch of effects preloaded in it based on whatever the sample is. But then, of course, you can also add new ones. So I like this one. Amped lead. Or I could now real quickly, what I'm going to do is go through just a couple of sounds randomly from each of the Sonespheres. So this is a piano bank. Run through a couple of those sounds. Each of the sonospheres have slightly different sound banks. So as you see, they're very, very manipulated sounds, very, very processed sounds. It's not like you're gonna come across a grand piano. Traditional grand piano, they're very, very heavily processed. Let's check out a couple of the other bangs. Guitars. All right, what about some other rhythmics? You want to run something underneath your track? Which I do all the time, by the way. Of course, you can also tempo sync these to your host by just clicking that button. Okay, let's do a couple more. I look at these types of libraries as kind of like the seasoning, the salt and the pepper and all the fancy things that we put on top of our food, the sauces that kind of bring the compositions to life. So you might have kind of your set number of like instruments and compositions, and then you just layer this stuff on top and it adds depth and details. Wind. At some point in time, these were flutes. It's like oscillating pad kind of sounds. Almost sounds like an organ kind of a sound. Textures. Let's check out the bang from 2. So we got some arpeggiating type banks. Let's see what else we got. These would be really useful for like using underneath like a kind of an ostinato. That's a fun one. I like that one. That's a fun one. So you get the idea of that's from number 2. Let's check out number 3. Seabeds. cool and unusual sounds. Let's check out depths. We got some harps. Take the arpeggio off if you want. Of course, this is not going to sound like an actual harp. It's going to sound like a processed harp. Let's see some of these. That's a nice one. Let's check out some pianos. Very, very different piano patches. You can still hear a little bit of an actual piano in there. Very, very processed, synthy kind of pianos. Which I think is what you want to go with this library. An actual, like, acoustic piano might sound a little odd. That's a really cool one. I like that one. Let's check out some of these other ones. Shallows. It's like a string kind of sound in there. Let's check out bass synths. I like that one a lot. Impacts. Try an arpeggio with this one. Okay, or maybe you want to filter it. Just gotta get in there and mess around with it. Lots of fun stuff you can do in there. Okay, so you got some impacts. You get the idea. Let's check out number 4. We got some more pianos. Again, very processed pianos. You got flames. Lots of really fun piano ones in this one. String sounds. It's arc. So guitars. Just think of it as like 4 products in one, and each of those individual products have like a whole host of sounds and a whole bunch of different ways that you can manipulate them, but then we can throw them all together. We have some presets up here. If you click on this, we have some Soundiron ones. You have some of Blake's presets, who worked with Soundiron to develop this library, so lots of cool stuff. We're just going to randomly go through a couple. This is called Embers. So as you can see, we have all 4 sounds going on now. But then of course you can always go through and you can take certain sounds out, or you can change some of the individual sounds. Evergreen. That one's really nice. Let me see. Let's go through a couple other ones. Melodic, Messenger. So we get that rhythm bake in there. I want to turn that up a little bit. Get even a little bit more of that in there. Maybe bring down the strings a tiny little bit. Bring this guy down just a tiny little bit. You can just get lost in it, but I think the trick is you got to go in there and you got to mess around with the sounds and see what you can come up with. Let's run through the composition. I bounced everything down just for the purpose of this tutorial so we don't have any pops and cracks. In the light blue, these are all Sonesphere sounds. In the orange, we have some Soundiron Apocalypse percussion, just a couple of patches. We have ethnic drums and snares. In the purple, we have artillery shell cello, which I love using for really strong attack and creating kind of rhythmic parts, and that's pretty much all it's doing. We have some Hyperion strings, just the first violin sustains, very, very low down in there. And we got some temple drums, sub-synth. I'll play you through just the Sonespheres sound so you can hear just what that sounds like all together. So let's do that first. So as you can see, it still sounds very, very big. Okay, and then I just added a couple of little textures on top of it. I like kind of like running rhythm underneath. So what I did is I took a sound kind of like this, where we had the rhythm bank. Okay, and then I just took out the other stuff so that we only had the rhythm. Something like that. I recorded that part and ran it underneath the track. So let's hear how that sounds like. And then the bulk of the composition was from this guy, where I think I used all 4 layers. I can't remember how much I fooled around with this, or if I probably started with a preset and then I just kind of messed around with it and kind of got it for where I wanted. So we got a little bit of piano, a little bit of harp. And I recorded one big long track, and then everything else was based on that. So let's listen to a little bit of that. I recorded that in one take and then built everything on top of that. Other kind of interesting things that I did using the library was, for instance, this had a kind of a big impact hit. I'm literally just pressing one note. And then added a ping pong delay in the rack. Okay, so we'll listen to it without. Sounds fine, but listen to it with a delay now. See how the ping pong goes back and forth? And then I also rolled off some of the high end, so each of the delays that come back, they lose some of that high end. Then you get this. Very, very cool sound. I was literally just playing it kind of like a percussive hit, just playing one note at a time. Aside from that, I just kind of let Sonespheres do its thing. I didn't mess around with a lot of the parameters. I find that starting with presets is always the best way to go because it kind of gets you started, especially when there's a lot in the library. You can import samples into this. Who is this library for? Definitely if you're a fan of Soundiron and how they do their interfaces and how they give you so much. If you're into sound design, if you love tinkering and playing with things and manipulating sounds, importing sounds, I think it's really useful for adding textures to your compositions. It is a giant seasoning tool. So I think adding it on top of your existing compositions and creating little ear candy that'll draw the listener in. Of course, you could create a whole composition with just this library, but I think using it in tandem with other libraries will really elevate your compositions. Thanks for watching, my friends. Stay safe. Catch you in the next one.